Good morning, everybody. My name is Chidebere. Welcome to today's tutorial. So today we will be looking at how to fetch data over the internet via API call in our Flutter application. So I've gone ahead to create a new project, and I've gone ahead to start that project in my emulator here. And this is the project. I've cleaned up my main.dat file. I've cleaned up most of the thing. I'm only left with the void class as well as the app, my app class, the home page. I've cleaned it up. So for this tutorial, we'll be taking a leaf from Flutter Cookbook. When you go to docs.flutter.dev and then go to cookbooks. This is the cookbook. Within the options in the cookbook, you will see networking, and inside the networking menu, you will see background passing. Or you can go to this URL here. This is the URL. Let me copy it and paste it so you'll be able to see it. So this is the URL that you go to. Let me make it a little bit smaller. Let's make it 20. So this is the URL. This is the URL. So you can go to this particular URL and you will get this tutorial we're about to do. So for this particular tutorial, we want to get data over the internet, and we want to pass that data through a model so that our data can be structured. We don't have to manually build up our data or add our data in our screen interface. So for this particular tutorial, we require the HTTP package. So for the HTTP package, go to pubdev pub.dev, and then when you go to this particular place, search for HTTP. Then the first one, HTTP. Then you have HTTP. Go to installing. Then copy this dependency. This is the latest one. Your version might be different from mine. You can copy the newest version, or you can modify it to be this version. So come back to your project, go to your spec.yaml file, and then you have this here. I've already pasted it. So you have this. Once you put this, you can click on pubget. But if you are using any other IDE in your terminal, you can go to terminal and you can do flutter pubget, and it will do the same thing. But in VS Code, once you paste this here and move away from this IDE screen, it will automatically fetch it for you. So you don't need, you might not really need to do this flutter pub get anymore. So this is this for this, and then the next thing we are going to do is this. In our tutorial here is this is the API that is being called. This is the URL of the API. So we can copy this URL and then copy it to see what it returns and paste it somewhere like this, and then make a call to it. I've already called it before, that's why you're seeing this data. So this is what it will return if you call it. If you paste this here, so I have a Json formatter here, so it's going to format it for me. It's going to format it for me. But if I don't need this formatting, I'll put it in raw data. It will return back to the original form it was before. Now, I made mention that we will be using a model to build our API, or to build our app, and then pass the API response which we'll be getting to those data. Forget the English I'm speaking. If you are new to Flutter or to programming in general, just follow the steps. Anything you see me do, just do it. With time, it will start making sense to you. So this is this. And if we go back to this tutorial, you will see that they have a model. They generated a photo class. So this is their photo class. We can copy this directly and paste, but I want to show you how they generated this particular class here, this particular class, how they got it. So they got it by you can do this manually if you know how to, or if you are used to it, or you can. So part of this class here, I want to copy it. Let me copy. You can copy just one, or if they are not all the same, you can copy everything. You can copy everything, but this field is long, so I oh let's just copy everything. I don't know how big. Oh, it's really big. No, we are not copying everything. Let's just copy one or two. Let's just copy two. So you see there is an opening square uh, bracelet here, and the ending one is located down here. So I just want to show you in case I'm doing something and you understand what I'm doing. So I just copied two for the first one, this first two up to this place, and then I copy. Now I want to generate our model, the model for our application. So this model, I call it, I've generated it before. That's why you are seeing all this here. This model here, this is where you paste your model, a sample of the model you want to generate, and then it will show error. It's telling me that it is missing the closing bracelet here. So I close it up here by putting this. So the error will be gone now. So this is it here, and it's showing has an extra comma. So you remove this comma here. So it's going to automatically create your model for you. So this is the model it generated, and now we want to name it. Let's look at what they gave their own. They gave it photo. So we want to use the same format. Then photo, it automatically gives you this. So basically what they did is to generate something like this. You can generate something like this. This is how to generate it. I just want to show you how it is being generated in case you have a different one or a different model from what they have here. Of course, you will have a different model if you are building your own application. Another thing is that we are using that programming language. So you have to come over to this place and select your own programming language, because each programming language have a different way of structuring their model. Let's look at C, for instance. This is how C structures its own. Let's look at something like Go language. This is how Go language structured its own model. So you must select your own programming language here, and what we are using is that programming language. So this is what they have, although they made it simple, a little bit simple, by removing this factory conversion here. That's why they have only, oh, they had the factory conversion. The only thing they don't have is this map. They want to return a list, and this is a map conversion in case you want to use map instead of list. So basically that's how you generate your model. So next thing is, this is how they generated their model. The next thing they did here is to create a function. Now the first one, this function here is used. The first thing, okay, let me define this function. We have this function, and what we are expecting is a list of the model photos, and this is the name of the function. We are using future because this function will not be called until the application has started running. So that's why it's future. So we have async here, which means an asynchronous call. So when this call is being made, it has to wait until this guy returns a data or returns an empty list to it before it can continue with the rest of the execution. But if this async is not here, once it executes this, it will not pause. It will just go ahead and start executing all other code in this function. So this is the API here, the API call which we are making. This is where we want to store our response. Whatever this guy returns, it will be stored here. And we have a more advanced way of making an API call, but this is the simplest one you can get. So this await function is telling this await here means it's telling this function or this piece of code, that it has to wait for this guy to either return a null value and an empty list, or it returns the JSON response to it before it can continue. That's why this is here. And this client is HTTP protocol here for a get. You can see this is the client that is defined. This client is from the HTTP packet or package which we will import, and this URL is the location of the API. Yours will definitely be different, but this is a sample API which we are doing, which is, it will return something like this. The URL is a particular location where your image is stored, and so many other things like that. So basically this is this, and now it is returning past photos. Now this is the function that it is calling here, and inside this function it is returning the object or the response which it gets from this particular call back to this. Now this guy, this function here will now pass it to this our model, and this model will return a list for us. It will pass it through the map and it will return a list to us. Forget, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, just follow the moves that I'm making, or follow the steps that I'm doing. So this is our complete, where they completed the whole thing. Let me run you through it again. They have to import async for them to be able to make an asynchronous call, such as they are doing here. Where is that place? Where is that place? They are making that as, oh, okay, see it here, asynchronous call. They have to make use of convert because of this something like json.decode that they are using somewhere. Okay, this is it here, and they have to import foundation because they are making use of compute. Now we have this thing here. We have this fetch photos and this fetch photos. The difference between the first one and this second one is that this one has compute, and it's passing this and this. So, but this one only make use of these past photos. So let's look at the reason why we have to use compute. It says that if you run this function, this first one, on a slower device that doesn't have enough RAM, the application will freeze momentarily while it is doing the conversion for you, and this is not good for your app. So that's why you need to use this compute. What this compute does is that it will get all this response and it will run this conversion in isolation to the application. It will just separate itself from the application, pick some space in your RAM, compute whatever it needs to compute, and then return it back to your application. That way your application will not be hanging, or your application will not hang. So that is that for that. So we have this. This is outside of our class, each class. So anywhere you call this in your application, you can really access it. This is our class, which I told you this is how to generate it here. These functions, you can separate it into pages. You can separate it into pages. So the next one here is our main class, which you will see inside your application, and this is the app. This is the default this thing that we can see in somewhere here in our main. We have our void, we have our app main. So these are the normal boilerplate they include for you, and they are using home page, my home page here, which is our page which displays this screen. And for this home page, they made it a stateless widget. And then the next thing I want to talk about is this photo list. So this is a class and it returns a widget, and this widget that it is returning is a grid view. And what is being passed to this widget here is these photos. It's getting the list of photos from our model and it assigns it to this. So we can now get the length for us to know the number of items we are going to return here, and then it is returning just images.network. So this is what it is returning. It's returning the image network here. It is returning the image network here, over here. So we can separate this, put this in a separate page in our Flutter application, or we can jam pack everything like this, which is not good. So later on I will show you how to separate it. But then why I picked up this before going to this is, what happens here is that we are using a feature builder, and this feature builder simply means that this particular part section of our code will not be built until whatever it is, any of this function or any of these condition is met. If any of these condition changes, it will build whatever it is that uh, it has inside. So what are we fetching? We are fetching our photos here. This is our photo. So we are fetching it here, and we are passing the HTTP client to it, which is what it requires for it to fetch our photo. So we have a builder here, and this builder picks whatever is returned here and stores it in a snapshot for us here. And this context is just simply making reference to this particular widget here. So if these snapshots, two things will happen. If there is error in this snapshot, meaning that it didn't complete, it will return a text telling us that an error occurred. If this snapshot has data inside, even if the data is an empty list, the empty list means that there's nothing inside, it just returns an empty list for us. It is still a response. It is still a response here. It is still a response, and it will show you photos this. Now, this particular question mark here is a null checker. Null check simply means that over here we are making use of SDK version 2.12.0. If you use version 2.11, it will remove this null checker for you. So there wouldn't be any need for you to be having something like this required, and inside something like this, having something like this here. So that's that. And then over here, what it simply means is that if it has data, it will return this widget, and this widget will continue to build up to the amount of photo or up to the amount of objects or JSON, whatever that it has inside. It will return the total number of it here. So now, if there is any other thing, like let's say it is still getting the snapshot or the data, it should return a circular progress indicator. It shows loading, 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 loading. So that's all we have here, and this is what we are going to get when we run this particular sample application. So what do? We just copy this directly and then paste it in our main.dat file. We clear everything and then we paste it here. So you see it didn't give us any error. If you have error in your own, then you have to troubleshoot. So in our app, which is this, I want to run it. So okay, it's already running on its own. So the you can see we got this, the title here. You can change the title to API core, and then have something similar to this. So API core, it will change this. So over here in our widget, it is returning this. Now let's make this a little bit interesting. So what this actually does is that this is for images, and instead of having this, we can, if you making use of, you can press alternate. If you are making use of Android Studio, put your this on this image and press alternate, enter. It will give you this option here. You wrap it with a column. So this image will now be inside a column. So we want to capture all these fields. We want to capture all these fields here. We have ID, we have album ID, title, URL, and thumbnail. So what we are getting over here is just thumbnail. So we want to, under these images, we want to add a text to it. We want to add a text and it will be our title. So we specify the text widget, and then what do we want to pass inside our text widget as text? We had photos, which is our what we are getting from this list. We want to the index, which is the location. This is index 1, index 2, index 3, index 4, index 5. So for number 1, it will do that, get the title. 2, 3, they all have different titles. So we go back to our application, and then we have index, then dot. What do we want? We want title. So let's see what it will give us. So if we refresh this guy, you see, it gives us the title of each this thing here. Now let's see let's change this to URL. Let's see if there's anything stored in the URL. I doubt whether there will be something in it. Okay, there's nothing in our URL. That's why it's returning empty. So we change it back to, but if I have an image at this particular URL location, it will return that particular image over the internet. Dot thumbnail. So we leave it as thumbnail, and then can then start adding. This is overflowing. So to address this, we just add something called overflow, and we have a text overflow dot. What do we want to do? We want it to be ellipsis, to have triple dot 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 dot. So if it is overflowing here, we want it to have something like ellipsis. So you can see it has 3 dots here, it has 3 dots here, it has 3 dots here. So the next thing we want to showcase is maybe before this we can put something like another text to tell us that this is our ID. So we have something like this, and we have something like photo ID. Want to combine a text with this here. So what do? You put your variable sign and put a query bracelet, and then inside it you put your photos, and then the index of the photo, then dot. What do we want? Album ID. So we put our comma here so that this error will go. So we can refresh, and you can see photo ID. It will bring, so it's fetching this, and this. So now it's returning photo ID 1, photo ID 1, and that's not supposed to be the case. But anyway, we'll treat that in our next tutorial. So basically, this is how to make a call to an API. Don't forget, this is where we call our API. This is where we pass it to our model. Now this is our model, which is structured like this. This is our main. This is our where we start our application, and this is the body of our application. And inside the body, we are calling a widget which we created outside of this place. So for this now, I can decide to copy this out and put it in a separate file which I will call photo list, and then just to make it cleaner, well structured, and compactable or compact, as the case may be. I can decide, this particular class here, I can copy it out and put it inside another file, another .dat file, and call it home page or my home page. And then the only thing I need to do is to make sure I import this guy into this main.dat file. And inside this I can move this class to another one and call it model, and the name of my model is photos, or I can call it photo model. I can move it. The only thing I need to do is to make sure I import it wherever I use it. And where am I using it? I'm using it inside of this place. I can decide, okay, let me create another class and I will call it constructor or anything, or handler, and I will pick these two guys and move it to that particular file. The only thing I need to do is to make sure I import the location into where I'm using it. So that's all for this tutorial. I will see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.